Welcome, everybody, to the Assuminati podcast.
Yeah.
Welcome.
We're just three guys in our opinions, talking about everyday life, mixed with a few conspiracies. That's all we're trying to do here. So thank you once again for listening. Especially last week, our previous week's episode, if you remember, was the Arby's Diablo Dare, which ended up not being as Diablo or Dare, but it was still good. Anyway, go listen to the episode.
Such a disappointment.
Tell us what you think. We also talked about and gave shout outs to many of the people who commented on Facebook about the spiciest things that you've ever eaten. We love talking about food. That's what we do. That's what our passion is. However, speaking of listening to last week's episode or any other episode that we've done, Matt's got a little announcement for the people. Matt, why don't
That's
you tell
right,
us
Brandon.
what's been going on with the Assuminati podcast?
I would love to tell you what's been going on with the Assuminati
Tell us.
podcast.
All right.
In fact, we are now, drum roll please, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Oh, wait.
Please go check it out.
That's like big
Spotify
time.
and Apple Podcasts. Yep, we've hit the big time.
You know, thank goodness Neil Young decided to leave the platform to make a spot for us.
You're absolutely right, Robert.
Oh, and I think our threat was we were going to put our music on Spotify if they didn't take action. So we followed through on our threat. Neil followed through on his threat. Randy on Facebook beat us to that. That's thank you, Randy, for being on the same page as us. But thank you, Neil, for making a spot. Thanks for opening
thanks,
up.
Neil Young.
Yes.
Hope
And
Neil
thank
Young-
you, Joe Rogan, for offending Neil Young.
And we are now worldwide.
Yo,
Really? Where's
Yes.
some of our furthest listeners?
international.
We now have listeners in France, believe it or not, in Belgium,
I
And
like
we've
the
got-
Belgian waffles.
We
East Coast, United States. We've got listeners throughout the U.S.
That is
all over the
awesome.
world. We're
amazing.
worldwide. Yep,
international, worldwide.
I am going to honor our international listeners tomorrow by eating some French fries and a Belgian waffle.
We.
As you should.
Speaking of international, speaking of worldwide, let's talk about this week's topic. 'Tis the season. It comes every 4 years. We are tackling the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, cue the theme song.
The
Winter
theme
Olympics,
song.
baby.
Now, what we're going to be talking about specifically this week about the Winter Olympics are some of the sports that we've grown to love. And maybe they're sports
Yeah.
that we only pay attention to once every 4 years. But that doesn't matter because it's happening now. The love is happening now. The coverage is there. So let's discuss what we have fallen in love with, what we gravitate towards. We'll mention some of the comments from Facebook once again. Okay, so this Olympics happens to be this year, 2022. For those listening in the future, in Beijing, China.
Who would have thought?
A place that gets 6 days of snow a year from what I looked up. So how the heck did they end up with that? Well, maybe we'll talk about that in next week's episode. But what we're going to talk about first is an obscure sport that we've come to appreciate or love from the Winter Olympics. And I believe Matt is going to lead us off.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you mentioned the gravity of things before, and my sport that I picked for the most obscure sport is called the skeleton, which uses the
Ooh.
law of gravity to
That sounds
pull
scary.
people downhill, an icy hill, actually on a super small sled, head first. The skeleton has been around for a lot of years, since 1928, when it made it for its first appearance at the Winter Olympics in St. Moritz. Okay, and then it was there again at the 1948 Winter Olympics, and then continued for a little while, and then stopped suddenly for quite some time,
Wow.
and then made another debut in the 2002 Salt Lake City Winter Olympics.
Right.
Go
So
Salt Lake
skeleton-
City.
So that's right, Salt Lake. Bringing back those dangerous sports.
2002.
So who do we think has the most medals in the skeleton overall? I'm going to just throw that out there for you guys.
the
You
most
can guess.
medals-
I've got the numbers right here.
The most medals in one of the most dangerous sports ever created.
I have to think,
Uh,
because it's driven by gravity, that those big Canadians may be holding the record.
Canadians, huh? I'm going to say Swiss.
I don't know if this is accurate, so I'm going on Wikipedia, and we all know that that's kind of
It's
Totally
the
accurate.
Source of all truth.
That's where I get all my facts.
The U.S. is ranked number 1
Look at
in the
that.
skeleton overall.
USA.
Bunch
USA.
of bad asses in the
Woo!
USA.
Followed
right.
by Great Britain and then Canada. So I think, Robert, was it you that said Canada?
Yeah, because I figured, gravity and Canadians are a little bit bigger. All that maple syrup.
That was a boot. You
and Canadian bacon.
Stop
You
overrating
need
the
to work on that
Canadians.
project.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, USA, huh?
That's what I've got. USA followed by Great Britain, then Canada.
Take
Number
that.
3.
Take
Bringing in the rear.
that.
The one that surprises me the most is Great Britain because they just don't seem like all that much fun.
You, sir, are offending our international crowd already.
I love the Belgium one.
Golly, man.
I mean,
Yeah, right.
they brought the waffles and upgraded them.
You're getting canceled. I'm canceling you.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
that's
you're
my
back.
pick, the skeleton. Okay, so now let's move on to the next pick from Brandon.
Okay, I'm going with a sport that I've fallen in love with, the biathlon. So for the
Biathlon is awesome.
Not only should you Google skeleton and what that means as far as the sport, but Google the biathlon if you've never had a chance to see what these guys and gals do. It is unbelievable. Origins are Norwegian, and we're talking war. We're talking soldier origins here. We're talking actual military training back in the 17 and 1800s. Soldiers on skis with weapons.
Nice.
Soldiers on skis with weapons, patrolling the border. And then they met each other. Yeah. And then they started competing against each other. It turned into a international sport, especially in those Norwegian country areas. At one time, they were carrying 30-06s and muskets and huge guns. We're talking big guns here.
And if done today, it'd be a bunch of old dudes with AK-47s.
Right? Especially if it was in Russia. Now they use 22s. So they've toned it down to 22 rimfire shells. They do carry them on their back. They ski. The men do at least 20 kilometers for the biathlon. So
wow.
picture skiing, one of the most intense cardio workouts you'll ever have. And then you have to shoot a hole the size of a quarter with a 22.
This skiing, is it mostly like cross country, downhill, little of everything?
It's a little of everything. Mostly it's cross country. It is a cross country environment, which involves some hills and some undulation. But we're talking 50 meters. You got to shoot a quarter with a 22 from 50 meters.
That's intense.
160 feet, 165 feet.
You got to go through undulation to get adulation.
There we go.
Everyone knows that.
Hey, just the cool. I remember the first time I saw this on TV. It was just mind blowing to control your breath and your aim, and then go ski for another mile, come back, hit a quarter, keep skiing. It is the number one most watched winter sport in Europe. Number one. So that's
awesome.
Not really obscure. Those Norwegian countries dominate. It's the USA. I know we had a lot of luck in skeleton. We've had zero luck in the biathlon. We have yet.
We can't shoot.
We have yet to medal. I think we can shoot. We can't do both, though. We can't get all tired and then try and shoot a quarter. We got better things to do. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting how popular that sport is. These athletes are celebrities, and rightfully so. Watch it. Major coverage. Google it at least. Go YouTube it. Okay, so that is my pick, biathlon. Robert, what you got?
All right, so I'm going to tell you about a little sport called skijoring, which you may or may not have ever heard about before.
Nope. You got it.
So the typical course, it runs about 1,000 feet, and it features 12 slalom gates, 6 jousting rings, and the skier must grab. And then there's 3 ramp-like jumps ranging from 2 to 6 feet in height. So basically, it's skiing meets the rodeo meets medieval times.
And this is an Olympic sport, sir.
Well, so it was included as a demonstration sport in the 1928 Winter Olympics in St. Moritz and has never been back. But I think it should be. I think it should make a comeback. This is a sport that involves skiing while being pulled by a horse or a dog, or for guys like us, multiple dogs. But It was in the 1928 Olympics. That was the first and the last Olympics. There were 7 people that competed. It was held on a frozen lake, but there was no jumps or slaloms. It was just 7 dudes on skis getting pulled behind riderless horses.
No
So you
way.
could have dubbed it ski boring, which is probably why it wasn't included in other Olympics.
Oh, boo.
Yeah, but it originated in Norway back in the 19th century.
Okay.
It's still practiced in Scandinavia, Switzerland, as well as some remote northern regions where apparently they don't have Netflix, satellite, cable. There was no gold medals given. And apparently they forgot to write down who actually won out of these 7 people because there is no history of it. So we don't know. But did you guys know Uncle Bobby here has actually done this before? I didn't realize it when I was doing it until I was doing a little research on ski joring. But back on the ranch growing up, we used to strap on our skis. We would have the horse pull a rope behind it. Yeah, that was just life on the farm in the winter. But I could totally see a bunch of drunk guys leaving the shed here in Tooele County, right, Brandon?
Yeah.
And saying, you know what? I want to challenge you to a round of skijoring. So that skijoring, I think it's a pretty obscure Olympic sport. I would like to see it make a comeback.
That is the definition of obscure, especially if it doesn't exist anymore.
I think you win the award for most obscure sport.
Yep, you win.
Well, you know.
And you've actually done it, apparently. Well,
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
I wish there was video evidence of
That's
this.
awesome.
We have given the people something to Google. That is for sure. I myself will do so. Say it one more time. What's the name?
Skijoring.
Skijoring. Can you use it in a sentence? What's the
I
country
went
of origin?
skijoring in Norway back in the 19th century.
Country of origin. Oh man, it's like a spelling bee. Okay. Well, thank you for that enlightening subject there.
I'm glad I was able to, share some little tidbit you hadn't known before.
Little sport of your people there. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very nice, Robert.
Okay. Well, let's move on to our next final topic of the episode. Let's talk about our overall favorite.
Let me jump in here with my personal favorite.
Okay.
The first one here that I thought of was ski jumping. I absolutely love watching ski jumping. I don't know if I would love doing ski jump
it's
or anything.
mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. I think the thing that I love most about it is just seeing those guys almost stay in the air forever. It's like they just glide through the air and stay there forever.
It's magical.
It is magical for me. Yeah. So the ski jump has been around for a long time, guys. 1924 through 1956. And then they extended the hill length to 70 meters, made it bigger from 70 to 80.
That's
in 1960, I think. Yeah, it's big. So that's kind of the history of it. I'm not sure the origin though here. I think it was, let's see.
How could you nail down that origin? That would be tough to do.
Yeah, Switzerland. Looks like Switzerland is the country that
I can see it being the Swiss.
A lot of these sports
down
came
the
from
Alps.
there. All right.
So who in this category do you think has the most medals?
Ski jump.
Who's number one?
I'm gonna have to say Switzerland.
That's what I would guess. I'll go like Norway just to give you a different.
Well, guess what, Brandon? You're right.
Yeah,
It is Norway.
Norway
Look
number
at those
one.
Norwegians.
Finland number 2. Austria number 3. Followed
All
by Germany, Poland, and Switzerland.
All of
They're
it.
down
Man.
to number 6.
Switzerland didn't even make the top 3.
And
Well, I just want to say this is also an Olympic sport I have done, even as recent as last week.
So
Although my
flying out
jump
of
was slightly smaller.
flying out of control down Alta doesn't count as
Slightly smaller, but I got air, and my
Were you in a
teenage
vehicle?
son was mind blown that I could land a jump.
Very nicely done.
It's that
Robert.
I left
athleticism.
walking.
I don't think I could do that.
Ski jumping though,
Not at this stage.
they're using aerodynamics similar to airplanes like that. You can
They
tell
are.
that's how they're angling.
Well, the
their
helmets
skis
are
and-
formed, they're aerodynamic helmets.
right.
They've got the clothing that's aerodynamic and
Unreal.
everything.
It's very
Yeah.
smooth.
A lot of technology that goes into that.
And I know some of the people on Facebook mentioned different types of skiing, like alpine skiing. My wife mentioned that. But that jump, watching that in person, those of you who have been up to Park City have seen the training grounds for those jumps.
Mhm.
Just go up there and look at the jump itself. You don't even have to see anybody go off of it. That in itself is mind blowing. Just seeing what they're actually propelling themselves off of. So
I would crap my pants.
I
Me too.
would
I'm
too.
afraid of heights.
Man.
Well, Brandon, what you got? Synchronized skating or?
Yeah, a little Blades of Glory action. So just wishful thinking, right? Me and a leotard maybe one day. I
For
went
sure.
with Sanka. You dead man?
Ah,
Ah,
yeah.
As much as I like some of these other sports, I really wanted to promote bobsledding this year, and that's the world is really paying attention to bobsledding this year as well.
I'm a fan of anything with Bob in it.
We mentioned Uncle Bob Sled. That's your name for the rest of
That's
the
how he
episode.
gets in the Olympics.
Bobsledding. I mean, the main event is the 4-man bobsled, the big sled. They do have single, 2-man. 4-man tends to be the more popular one. That's the more difficult one. You should see some of the athletes they put into these teams. If you've seen the movie Cool Runnings, these are Olympic level sprinters that they're putting into these sleds, pushing the sled down the ice, gravity at play, can hit speeds 80, 90 miles an hour. One wrong
Dangerous.
turn, one wrong move, and you're putting your life on the line. The concussion rate in bobsled is higher than almost any other sport in the world. Now, the big deal this year is Jamaica is back. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The
The
last time they were in the Winter Olympics in the 4-man race was 1998. And then the Cool Runnings team that everybody knows was from 1988. So as far as the success that they've had, it's been a while. They are back. They are hyped. Watch them on social media. Pull them up on YouTube. Dancing, singing. They are as hyped as we are that they're back. That's the world's team once again.
I love it.
Thanks to the
If
movie.
only they
thanks
could
to-
bring John Candy back.
Right.
If only.
Rip.
He was the reason for all their success. John Candy. True story.
He and he alone. And anyway, it's Swiss origins, a bunch of rich people converting sleds in Switzerland back in the day. So
That's awesome.
That's for the origins. Who do you think is the most successful country at bobsledding of all time?
Got to be Jamaica.
I'm going to vote for Canada.
Canada? Okay.
I'm going to say Germany, actually.
Ooh, close. So Germany is second. It's Switzerland. We're the country of origin. Switzerland by far has the most championships, world titles, Olympic medals. Germany's in second place, and then all the other Nordic countries follow. Canada's up there. U.S. has been coming on hot as of late, so it is interesting to our country as well, who participates in these Olympic events. Anyway, that's my pick. The bobsled team coverage all around for that Jamaican team for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go with curling. So curling is by
Yeah.
far my favorite sport of all time, even outside the Winter Olympics.
Woo!
I love curling.
Curling was in the first Olympics in 1924, still going today. What I didn't know until today was for the longest time, curling was just a demonstration sport up until 1998. But then in 2006, the International Olympic Committee retroactively upgraded all the curling medals from the first Olympics in 1924 up until current day to being official medals in the
Wow.
Olympics.
Retroactively.
So-
That's awesome.
Like it always happens. So there's still hope for ski joring of being deemed official. Yep.
Oh, keep
Yeah.
dying
Keep
on that.
dreaming.
Keep dying on that
But
hill.
the
Yeah.
origin country was Scotland, way back to the 16th century. They were out there doing it in their kilts, awesome. The
course
most
they
gold
were.
medals. Who do you guys think is the most gold medals earning country?
I'm gonna say Canada.
Curling Canada. Yeah. I'm gonna say
Canada's
Canada.
kind of the hub now. Is
You
that
got
right?
it.
Gotta be.
Okay.
It is the Canadians.
We all love curling. Sorry, Bob, that you picked the subject that we're all
Yeah.
passionate about. Okay.
I love curling. And I have lots of facts about curling. But currently, 90% of elite curlers, they live in Canada. This is considered a country club sport in Canada. It's considered the chess on ice. Consists of 2 teams, 4 players each. There's a rectangular surface, much like chess. And then there's targets on the ring. Most people don't know this, but the ice is not completely smooth. There's little droplets of ice on there, and it creates pebbled ice. There are brooms in the game of curling. And then there's granite stones. They weigh between about 38, 44 pounds. They're 36 inches in diameter. But what you don't know is this granite is so rare. It comes from one of 2 quarries in the world. It's the only place to get this rare granite. And they're in Scotland on the Scottish island of Isla Craig, or in the Trefor Granite Quarry in Wales. And there's actually concern that they will run out of granite and not be able to make for future curling stones. That's a real thing.
Wouldn't they get that from the granite capital of the world, which we've discussed in a previous
Yeah,
podcast?
no,
the Georgia
it's the wrong
Guidestones
kind
in
of
Elberton?
granite.
Okay.
You
okay.
cannot use any other granite. Like, they'd have to change the name of the sport. Politeness is required in curling. But a little tidbit to next week. It's seen its fair share of scandals that I will highlight next week.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
Hey,
Stay tuned.
Curling's such a controversial sport.
And polite and controversial.
Better stock
Both.
up on the granite stock too when there's a shortage.
Yeah.
Of the, commodities.
Pick up on some of that granite because it's going to be worth pretty some.
Yikes.
Nice. Good job, Robert.
And who's the defending champion in the men's team?
It's the United States.
USA.
Yeah.
Oh, the world was mad. The world was mad.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Go
big sport.
USA. The coolest thing about this sport, and I think why everyone loves it, is because it looks like any average Joe Schmo could walk out of a bar and do it while holding a
For
beer
sure.
stein in their hand.
Yep.
And so I feel like I have a connection because I look like those athletes.
Yeah, those are my people too.
Mhm.
I'm with you 100%.
It's like the
Bunch
bowling.
of big bearded
Yeah.
guys
Yep.
out there just enjoying life.
Sweeping the ice. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Speaking of these American curlers who are the defending champions for the men's curling team on Peacock, not only are they covering it left and right, they have a 4-part documentary on what's called the American rock stars. Get it? Get the pun? The
Love
rock
it.
stars of the granite. And anyway, so it's called American Rock Stars. It's a 4-part series, and it shows them preparing to compete in the 2022 Olympics. These defending champions, these everyday men that we were talking about. So I thought that was cool. I'm gonna go give that a try. I'm gonna go give that a listen or a watch on Peacock. American Rock Stars.
Hey,
USA.
thanks for the recommendation. I'm going to check it out.
USA. All right. I can't believe how much coverage it's getting. For those of you who have Peacock or NBC affiliated apps, curling right now is off the charts. It's everywhere. I've been able to consume an absurd amount of curling already just in these first couple days. And the people on Facebook agree. We've got Becca and Sean, my family. They're thinking of coming up to the Olympic Oval and doing a curling class.
Let's do it.
Which are awesome. We should join them. Matt, you chimed in that you love curling a lot. That's my
Love it.
favorite. I think that ends up being my favorite right there with bobsledding. There's a Simpson episode that everybody should look up about curling.
Mhm.
It's hilarious. It's such a good episode. Anyway, curling, love it. The people love it.
Yeah, you can do it at the Utah Olympic Oval.
That's cool.
I've done it. And one of my coworkers totally slipped on the ice, split their pants, and had to staple it up with a borrowed stapler. It was wonderful.
Awesome.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome. We do have those
Curling
Olympic
accident.
facilities around us. We're pretty lucky.
Mhm.
A curling accident. How'd you get hurt?
That's right.
Yeah, we had to go back to work after that too.
Yeah, take that. Some of the other some of the other sports that were mentioned, we got the luge and skeleton from Facebook, alpine skiing, figure skating. Any of you a fan of that? I dabble when it's on.
My wife is a huge figure skating fan.
Like, the athleticism is mind blowing. I mean, it's up there.
All I know is when I get on
gymnastics.
skates, I have quite the figure.
We had women. My brother mentioned women's hockey. Kyle is kind of right. This is kind of the only time women's hockey gets its due, its coverage. So that's kind of sad. But every 4 years, they get a little spotlight on them. Those are some ferocious athletes. If you've ever watched a women's hockey game, they do not hold back.
Hockey in general.
Some of the fights are better than the men's. Just throwing it out there.
So, all right. Well, that's it for today's episode of the Assuminati podcast, where we talked about some Olympic sports. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Join us again next week for the corruption surrounding the International Olympic Committee. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. Share with your friends and family, like us on Facebook, and comment what you thought of today's episode. Until next week, have a great one.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
You
That's
merely
it.
adopted the dark. I was born in it.
It was better the first time, but
It was.
that gets an honorable mention.
It's still said. Oh, I'm feeling good about it. Oh, you can say it anytime you want. Yeah, let me
Are you wearing a
organize
beanie, Robert?
Yeah.
a hunting. That's
You
a,
just
cold in
noticed.
that's a Grantsville beanie. Is what that
Oh,
is.
yeah.
It's Patagonia.
Is
Patagucci.
it cold in there?
No, well, my head was cold earlier. I was outside and I just left
Oh.
it on.
Well, I hope Neil Young remembers.
That's right.
That's
The
awesome.
Southern man don't need him around anyhow.
Assuminati podcast happened because of him. So
That's right.
So,
Don't you think
I
though?
is the most
Wouldn't there be a
obscure.
concern about the poop coming from behind the horses as you're
Absolutely.
skiing into it?
that was meant to be.
Oh, yeah. What it was.
I definitely
will
had to be the
eventually
middle
be a
name.
memory.
That's for sure. Eventually be a memory of a time I tried so hard.
It got so far in the end. Sorry, cut that out.
What you got?
Start.
What you got? No, what you got though?
Okay, go.